In lesson 14 of the music theory series, we're going to make a start with reading music. Now I think that most of you have already seen a piece of music written out in sheet music. It looks very complicated, but it's not that difficult at all. So let's dive into it. Musical notes are written out on and in between 5 horizontal lines, which we call the staff. So let's see how that works, the placement of musical notes on the staff. For piano music, we normally use 2 staves, where the upper staff is normally used for the right hand and the lower staff for the left hand. In this lesson, we will only look at the upper staff, the one for the right hand. The other one, the staff for the left hand, we will do it in a later lesson. So the upper staff for piano sheet music, the one for the right hand, always starts with this symbol. This symbol is called the treble clef. The staff for the left hand uses another symbol. That's the bass clef, but as I said, we will talk about that in another lesson. The notes that are represented on a staff with a treble clef are normally from the central C and higher. Now, this is not totally true, because you can also represent notes that are lower than the central C. But I would say in most cases you can say that the notes that are represented on a staff with a treble clef are notes from the central C and higher. So, let's start putting notes on this staff. The note that is represented on the lowest line of the staff with the treble clef is the E. In this case, it's the E that is just on the right side of the central C, so just a major third above the central C. The next note is situated between the 2 lower lines. It's the F, and that's of course the F that is just on the right side of the E on the piano, so 1 perfect fourth up from the central C. Then the next note on the second bottom line is the G just on the right side of the F, and in this way we continue. So the next notes are A, B, C, D, E, and on the highest line of the staff, F. And here are all the notes that you can place on and in between the lines of the staff with a treble clef. Now in the beginning this is perhaps a little bit difficult to memorize, but there's a trick to memorize those notes. Let me take away all the notes that are on the lines and leave just the notes that are in between the lines. You see that those notes make up the word face. So that's an easy trick to remember the notes. From those face notes you can easily find out the other notes. Now of course you use this trick only in the beginning when you start learning the notes on the staff, because when you're reading music while playing your instrument you have to instantly know which note is where. Now to be able to read notes instantly you have to practice a lot, of course. Now as I mentioned before, the notes represented on a staff with a treble clef are normally for notes from central C and higher, and even from lower notes. But the note on the lowest line is the E. The E a major third higher than central C. So how do we write notes that are lower than that E? Well, let's just start with the D 1 whole tone under the E. That's easy, as you see. So how about the central C? Well, I can represent this C by drawing a little extra line under the lowest line of the staff. And here is the central C. We call such an extra line a ledger line. Now I can go even lower than the C. You see here the B, just a half tone under the central C. I can go even lower than that, but I will need more ledger lines. Here is, for example, the A minor third under the central C. Now I can go on and on by drawing more and more ledger lines, but the more ledger lines I draw, the more difficult it is to read the represented note. I would say that 3 or 4 ledger lines below the staff is still doable, but after that it becomes more difficult to read. But sometimes you see them in sheet music. Now you can use ledger lines not only under the staff, but also above the staff. We know that a note that is represented on the highest line of the staff is an F. So this is a G. When you draw a ledger line, you can represent the A just above the G, etc. It works exactly in the same way as the ledger lines under the staff. Now, can you see which note is represented here? Well, you can just count it out. Did you see it? Well, it's an E. This E is 2 octaves above the E that is represented on the lowest line of the staff. So now you know how to represent notes on a staff with the treble clef. But those notes are only white keys on the piano. How do you represent notes that are black keys on the piano? Well, we will do that in a later lesson. For now, it's very important that you practice the white notes, so that you can quickly read notes on a music sheet. Now, in order to be able to quickly read notes on a staff, scroll down to the bottom of this article and you will find interactive exercises that will help you to memorize the notes.